How to play B chords. And this is from How to Play Fingerstyle or Fingerpicking Guitar, Book 2, Lesson 9A. Before we get started, I need to point out that whilst this is part of the Fingerstyle guitar course, the B chord is used everywhere. So this particular lesson is useful to anyone who's having trouble with any of the B chords. That being said, if you need the notes that accompany this lesson, you can download them in PDF ebook format completely free at www.ebooks4guitar.com. And this lesson is in Book 2 and it's Lesson 9A. And if you find you need a more detailed beginner's lesson about bar chords, I'll put some links down below in the description to some more detailed bar chord lessons. The reason I'm making this video just about the B chords is that apart from the chord of F, more people have trouble with the B chords than any other chord. And the reason for this is that most B chords are based on A-shaped bar chords or second position bar chords. Right, before we get started on the bar chords, let's take a very quick look at the one and only B chord that can be played as an open chord, and that's the B7th, or more precisely, the B dominant 7th. If you're working your way through the Fingerstyle course, Book 2, you will have come across a partial B7th in the previous lesson, Lesson 9. Now, even though the B7 is an open chord, it can be quite tricky to play because you use all the fingers on the guitar and they're quite close to one another. So it's almost like playing Twister on the guitar with your fingers. If you're working your way through the Fingerstyle guitar course, you should be at least partially proficient with this chord by now. But if not, here's how to play it. And we're placing the fingers on in order from 1 to 4. So, place the first finger on the first fret of the D string, then place the second finger on the second fret of the A string, then place the third finger on the second fret of the G string, and finally place the fourth finger on the second fret of the top E string. And when you strum this chord, you miss the bottom E string, so you just play the top 5 strings. Here that is again. Place the first finger on the first fret of the D string, then place the second finger on the second fret of the A string, place the third finger on the second fret of the G string, and finally place the fourth finger on the second fret of the top E string. Now strum it, missing the bottom E string. This B7 is the only B chord you can play as an open chord. So we'll move on now and take a look at the second position or A string rooted bar chords, which if you're playing in an open position, they're the easiest to get to. And the reason they're called A-shaped bar chords is because they take their shape from the open A chords. So you can see here that the B major, B minor, B7th and B minor 7th are exactly the same shape as the A major, A minor, A7th and A minor 7th, but you've replaced the end of the guitar with the bar. We'll take a look at the hardest chord first, which is the B major, and that's because after you've done the B major, the other 3 chords will seem relatively easy. But first, we'll just take a look at the bar on its own. Now, if you're one of these people who have tried bar chords and thought they're too hard and it's not for you, then give it another try anyway, because with a little help you might crack them. And just by learning these 4 chords, you're actually learning over 48 chords. I'll explain this at the end. Here's some tips to help you get your first bar chord. Tip 1 is to watch your thumb position. If the thumb is too far round the guitar, it'll cause your first finger to bend, which means you won't be able to press down all the strings effectively. So move your thumb downward towards the floor, and this way your finger will sit more flatly against the strings. Tip 2. Try not to keep your finger too straight. If you tense up, your finger will curve in the opposite direction to the shape of the guitar. You want to allow the finger just to curve slightly in to the shape of the neck. If you can, focus on the feel of the strings under the finger so you can make sure they're all getting equal pressure. Tip 3. Try different finger positions. Most of the time, it doesn't matter how many strings you're covering, as long as you cover the strings that you need. So, in the case of an A-shaped bar chord, you only have to cover the 5 strings, ignoring the bottom E string. However, if you do cover the bottom E string, or even if your finger is going off the edge of the guitar, it doesn't matter as long as the chord sounds good. This is because different people find it easier to play bar chords with different parts of the finger. Tip 4. Only play what's in the tablature. Look carefully at the tablature and make sure what strings you should be covering, because quite often you don't have to cover all the strings, so a partial bar will do the job. Tip 5. Rest your hand. Don't worry if your hand starts to hurt while you're learning bar chords. Just take a break and come back to the guitar later. Quite often people find they get a pain either in the finger or in the back of the thumb, where the muscle is tensing up against the guitar. This is quite normal, so don't push yourself too hard and give your hand a rest. Tip 6. Try the side of your finger. Try rolling the finger back slightly, so you're pressing more on the side of the finger than on the front of it. This is how most people play, and doing it this way, it tends to be easier to get your fingers in the correct places as well. Right, let's bring this lesson all together, and as I said earlier, we'll try the hardest chord, which is the B major. And this is played with the bar across the 2nd fret, but you only have to cover 5 strings and not the bottom E string. And you place the 2nd finger in the 4th fret of the D string, the 3rd finger in the 4th fret of the G string, and the 4th finger in the 4th fret of the B string. And you try strumming across the 5 strings, you don't play the bottom E string. If you managed to play that chord, well done. But if you didn't, don't worry, we'll try it one more time, and then if you still can't get it, I'll show you some different ways of playing the same chord. Here it is being played again. Firstly, I place the bar on the 2nd fret, covering the top 5 strings. Then I place the 2nd finger in the 4th fret of the D string, the 3rd finger in the 4th fret of the G string, and the 4th finger in the 4th fret of the B string, and now strum every string except the bottom E string. If you still didn't manage to play the B major chord, don't worry about it. There's 4 ways to play that chord that I'll show you today. So we'll move on to the second way of playing the B chord, which involves just using 3 fingers, the first finger to make the bar, and the third and fourth fingers to create the A shape. So the second way to play the B major chord would be to bar the second fret with the first finger, then place the third finger on the fourth fret of the D string overlapping onto the G string, and then place the fourth finger in the fourth fret of the B string. The trick behind getting this chord is with the third finger, you place it on the D string and then flop it down slightly so it overlaps two strings. And you'd strum this chord the same way as the previous chords by playing the top 5 strings, ignoring the bottom E string. If you don't get on with that way of playing the B chord, the third method involves using 3 fingers again, but this time the first, second and third finger. So, to play the B chord the third method, we first bar the second fret with the first finger. Then you place the second finger in the fourth fret of the D string and allow that finger to overlap onto the G string. Then you'd place the third finger in the fourth fret of the B string. This method is a bit of a stretch, but because the second and third fingers are wider than the third and fourth fingers, it's easier to cover 3 strings. And as with all these B major chords, we strum the top 5 strings, ignoring the bottom E string. The fourth way to play this B major chord is just using 2 fingers, and it's probably the most common way of playing a bar chord because this method is used to play 5th chords or power chords that are used in rock and grunge and punk, etc. And to play the chord using this method, we first place the first finger on the second fret of the A string, and this time it doesn't have to bar. We then place the third finger on the fourth fret of the D string, but you want this finger to bar across the D, G and B string. And when you strum this chord, you only want to play the 4 middle strings, so you avoid the top E string and the bottom E string. Hopefully, one of those methods of playing the B major chord will fit in well with your way of playing the guitar. And if one does, you want to practice it so you can remember it for the future. Right, let's move on to a slightly easier chord, which is the B minor. And if you're working your way through the fingerstyle guitar course, this is one you need to play. So let's take a look at that. Firstly, we create a bar across the top 5 strings in the second fret using the first finger. Then we place the second finger on the third fret of the B string. Then we place the third finger in the fourth fret of the D string. And finally, we place the fourth finger in the fourth fret of the G string. And again, you just strum the top 5 strings, ignoring the bottom E. Right, let's do that again. Firstly, create a bar in the second fret using the first finger. Then place the second finger in the third fret of the B string. Then place the third finger on the fourth fret of the D string. And finally, place the fourth finger in the fourth fret of the G string. And then strum the top 5 strings, ignoring the bottom E. as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're working your way through the fingerstyle guitar course, you'll be using that B minor chord in the next lesson, so you'll have plenty of opportunity to practice it. The next chord, the B seventh or the B dominant seventh, is probably the least important chord in this lesson, and that's because we've already covered it as an open chord, and if you're in the open position, it'd be the best choice of chords to use. But we'll take a quick look at it anyway, just to see how it's played. So to play this B seventh, the first thing we do is place a bar on the second fret, as we did earlier. But this time, place the third finger on the fourth fret of the D string and play the fourth finger on the fourth fret of the B string, and strum the top 5 strings, ignoring the bottom E. Right, let's move on to the last of those 4 B bar chords, the B minor seventh, and this is probably the easiest of the 4 chords to play. So to play this B minor seventh, the first thing we do is create a bar with our first finger across the second fret, just as we did earlier. But this time we place the second finger in the third fret of the B string, and we place the third finger in the fourth fret of the D string, and then we strum the top 5 strings again. Right, let's do that B minor seventh one last time. So, firstly, we create a bar with our first finger across the second fret. Then we place the second finger in the third fret of the B string, and finally we play the third finger in the fourth fret of the D string and strum the top 5 strings. You might remember that towards the beginning of the video I mentioned that by learning these 4 chords you are potentially learning over 48 chords. And the reason for this is that the chords are movable up and down the neck of the guitar. And these 4 chords are called B because the first note, or the root of the chord, is on the second fret of the A string, and this is the B note, and this note gives the chord its name. So if I was to move all these chord shapes up by 1 fret, they'd all become called C. So you'd have a C major, a C minor, a C seventh and a C minor seventh. And if I moved up again, we've got C sharp, then D sharp, then E, then F, etc. So you can see from this that these chords are really useful. If bar chords are new to you, or you've just avoided them up until now, I really recommend you go through the more detailed lessons I've done on bar chords. If you're interested in taking a look at those videos, I'll put the links to them down below in the description, because those videos are more detailed and they've got some exercises so you can practice what you've learnt. And if you'd like the notes for this lesson and many other lessons in PDF ebook format, you'll find them free to download at www.ebooksforguitar.com. That's it for today's lesson. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please hit the like button. Or if you're new to the channel and you'd like to see more lessons, please like, subscribe and hit the bell icon, and then you'll be notified when I upload new videos. which is approximately once a week to 2 weeks, so you won't be overloaded. Thank you very much for watching, and a special thanks to my channel members who are helping to keep the channel going. And if you'd like to support the channel financially, there's always room for more channel members.